Greetings. Welcome to the Race Code War, the Power of Words, Images, and Symbols on the Black Psyche by Khari Enaharo. We are covering pages 120 to 134. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to get this information out to more non-white people, and please use this information to help produce a system of justice by eliminating racism, white supremacy, and establishing balance between people, guaranteeing no one is mistreated, and those who need help receive constructive help. So the first term I'm going to read is from 120, and it is homeless. Code word, the race code word is homeless. And Mr. Enaharo states, this term has clearly become a word for Black people. When homeless people are shown on the street, the majority are Black men. If white men were seen as homeless, the political response to homelessness would be much more sympathetic. In the 1950s, the disguise for homeless was the lovable hobo. The comedian Red Skeleton popularized the white hobo and made it an adorable personality. The face of homeless became increasingly Black, and now homeless men are considered social parasites. And just to add some counter-racist logic into this text, to this code word, all people classified as Black are currently homeless in the system of white supremacy. That we don't. It's not possible for us to own a home or maintain a home while being dominated by a racist man and racist woman. We're only allowed to dwell in places we believe that are our homes, but racist men and racist women could write laws or mandates or eminent domain or just use direct violence and force to remove us from these so-called homes that we believe that we own. So I think that's very, very telling. And this part with Black males, Black females being considered homeless and them being social parasites. This is very correct. In the area of the world known as South Central, there's many of like billboards that popped up and on top of bus stops as well that says like let's fight homelessness, and that there's anti-homeless architecture popping up. Metal spikes being placed under freeways, and encampments routinely being cleared out because white people are trying to take back the so-called streets, and they're moving back into that area, and they don't want to see homeless people, especially Black people, around. So they have stigmatized and demonized the victims who are victims of racism, who are in a very, very incorrect state, and aren't allowed the resources they need to thrive and survive. But instead of giving them the help, nope, they want to push them out further, push them to the desert, push them. I would say to the beach areas, but not even they're being scrutinized and pushed out of there as well. And it's just really interesting how white people have created the image of the Black homeless person versus the white hobo, which is allegedly seen as adorable personality. And it's really tragic as well that when I was in the area of the world known as Berkeley, there was a whole camp called People's Park, where white people were allowed to just live there, live in that park, sell drugs at that park to the Berkeley students. And yeah, I never saw race soldiers clearing out that area at all. But when it's just mostly Black people who are homeless, yeah, they make it their a serious effort to remove the homeless people. And that's because no matter what kind of state we are in as Black people, the target is always going to be on us. I remember a picture of someone, I think I forgot who shared it in the chat, but it's just a Black male sleeping on the floor, and it's and right behind them there's a bunch of white people eating at a table, and because I think white people are very comfortable to see us in that state, just a state of being homeless, being miserable, or being totally helpless to do anything about our problems because they've got us out here. So they've done such a wonderful job at chemical warfare against us with the alcohol and the drugs and whatnot. So definitely a really powerful code word is homelessness, and also they have made it a really common for many of us to be so-called homeless, and despite the fact that we are all homeless until we solve this problem. And yeah, if folks like to chime in or share some of their own notes, that would be great.
Hello, peaceful greetings. This is Kwaku. Thank you for reading that 05. That was one of the words that I also had highlighted. For me, when I read the word homeless or see the word homeless, it reminds me of how heavily victimized, because Black people may be homeless, how victimized they are for being homeless. A lot of times, I wasn't even aware of who this character is, the red comedian or whatever. But on throughout popular culture and on TV and stuff, the white hobo is considered, this jolly good, almost similar to Santa Claus in some sense. Everybody feels bad for him. He's probably homeless due to some circumstances. But when Black people are homeless, they just they did everything wrong. It was all in most cases it was a personal choice. They didn't follow. They weren't doing what they were supposed to. Whereas I've come to find out that it's just being under a system of racism and white supremacy. These kinds of things are supposed to be happening. Black people are supposed to be homeless. There's constant efforts being made to ensure that Black people don't have dwellings. They don't have a safe roof over their head. Kind of like racial dislocation. And this also reminds me of from Black Civ, right? Keeping Black people on the move so they don't have time to think. So when you don't have a home, you don't have any time to think. You don't have time to sit down and think about solutions. You're just worried about survival. That's what that reminds me of. And there was another thing, but it just left my mind right now. I'm sorry, but yeah, homeless, definitely a strongly coded word. Yeah, that's it for right now. If I maybe remember, I'll come back to it. I forgot what else I wanted to add to that.
As far as homeless, I have watched this documentary. This was like some years ago about downtown LA Skid Row and how most of the homeless there, not all, but some of them like to actually be on the street. They don't like the responsibilities of the things they have to do as far as their home and living in a home. They feel, how can I put it? They don't feel free. They don't feel like they have the responsibility of others and the responsibility of being the whole control. And I never used to get that aspect of why they feel control. If it's something that's over their head or roof, they're taking care of things until, learning about the system and learning that our homes are not actually our homes. It's just things that we dwell in. We continue to always worry about until basically we're not here anymore. So now I get the aspects of the people that do and choose to be on the street, of how they don't like that attachment of feeling trapped. So they choose to be on the street.
Very interesting. I interpret that as them somewhere in their brain computer, them understanding that in this system they are quite dominated, and choosing to be homeless is one way to distract or avoid the problem of racism and white supremacy. They have computed that, hey, I'm already not free. I already am told where to live, how much I'm going to make. and it's all controlled by white people. So I'm just gonna, check out of so-called society and live on the streets. And that is tragically understandable, but that is not gonna help us to solve the problem. White people, as well, they many of them from People's Park in the area that are known as Berkeley, they choose to be homeless for like a little short adventure that they're on, but they'll still have white people, their relatives coming and bringing them food, bringing their dogs food, bringing them money, stuff like that. But I rarely see that happening to people who are classified as Black and who are homeless. So even still, the power dynamic is really telling. If you're a white homeless person, you still have tons of power, tons of resources at your disposal. But as far as when you're a Black victim of racism, white supremacy, and you're homeless, it's rarely are you helped, and people like will see you and just see a gross human vermin, subhuman vermin. So really telling that we're living in a system that is very, very apathetic to the suffering of Black people.
Also,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Smoker Damage.
No. Go.
So also with the term homeless, I've noticed a lack of sympathy when it comes to Black males and being homeless. I mean, we're all homeless, right? But when it comes to Black males, it's really sad. And I've heard people say that, oh, well, they can go get a job and they can sweep someone's doorstep or whatever. And I'm like, really? Wow. And how they would never give a Black male money who's panhandling, who's clearly homeless, but when it comes to a Black female, they're more likely to help. And something else. Terms that I like to use from the Word Guide, from the Compensatory Counter-Racist Codified Word Guide by Neely Fuller Jr. Race camps, residence, victim camp, victim house, and residence. And if you want to understand more on why I use those terms and what those terms mean, then please pick up the Word Guide by Neely Fuller Jr. Go ahead, Smoker Damsels.
Yeah, just picking up on what you were saying as well, 05. When I read that part, homeless, one thing that stuck in my mind, I remember, I think it was Jane Elliott's first visit to the cows context of racism, context of white supremacy, hosted by Gus T. Renegade. And they were talking about homelessness briefly, and then Neely Fuller Jr. was on the show, I think, probably on the broadcast, probably about 2 days after he was talking about that homelessness as well. And they were saying more or less the same kind of thing that you were just talking about. When white people are homeless, they have, the key word there is access. They have access to things that in a system of racism, white supremacy, white people have access to so much more things than Black people do, people who are classified as Black. So it just goes to show again that, there's no major problem that Black people don't have that getting rid of a system of racism, white supremacy won't solve. And usually, not even usually, but I'd say in quite a number of cases, there've been so many documentaries over here in this part of the world called England, documentaries about homelessness concerning white people mostly, and talking about how they come from, $1 million mansions, or their family are quite well off, and they just choose to stay on the streets. Usually when I see quote unquote poverty or Black homelessness, when you're down that road, you're classified as Black, you are there. That's where you are. You don't have, most of the time, you don't have access to other Black people with money and stuff like that. But, in a system of race and white supremacy, you're more likely to have that key word there, access to constructive help.
Precisely, yeah. And I that word popped out that you mentioned, Ms. B, race count. I'm just gonna go ahead and read it, and because I think it would be constructive for folks to not only hear the word but also know what it means. So this is from the word guide, Neely Fuller's word guide. 313, race count. Use this term to apply to any place, residence, country, nation, and these words are in quotations, etc., where non-white people are located during the existence of white supremacy racism. Reason, during the existence of white supremacy racism, non-white people do not have or reside in homes, nor do they have or reside in countries or nations. A location is not necessarily a home, a country or nation. A location is a location. A location can also be dislocation. During the existence of white supremacy racism, the white supremacist racists dictate which non-white people will be allowed to locate, where, when, and how. These locations and or dislocations for or against non-white people cannot be correctly called homes, countries, or nations. They can only at best be correctly called race camps, tribal locations, tribal reservations, etc. And yeah, there's another term, race house, race residence. Please get your copy, producejustice.com, get your copy of the word guide and also the code book so we can all do what Neely Fuller suggests and also Khari Enaharo suggests. Use the correct terms to describe things correctly. So we will always point the blame on the people who are to blame the most, which is racist men and racist women. And these people can only be white. So very constructive information right there. And any folks want to read anything else or share notes on anything else from page 120?
Yes. Teenage unemployment rate, hardcore unemployment, hardcore unemployed or unemployable, and low proficiency test scores, I think are kind of all tied together really. And I'll just read briefly from all three of them. Teenage unemployment rate. This is another reference largely used to define Black males more than whites. The numbers that get the most public attention pertain to the unemployment rate for Black males aged 16 to 22. And the hardcore unemployed or unemployable, this describes Blacks who cannot be employed or are simply not employable. The hardcore unemployable are Blacks who are lazy, dumb, and do not want to work. This is what this designation really means, is a racist label attached to the victims of economic injustice. And I guess the last one here on page 20 is low proficiency test scores, which kind of ties in to what Black people become, you know, when they miseducate you and you are a teenage unemployed, when they create the teenage unemployment rate and the hardcore unemployed or unemployable, right? And I was just thinking that my counter-racist definition for that, when you have like hardcore or unemployed or unemployable, is the white supremacist desired status for Black people under a system of racism, white supremacy. They want us all to be hardcore unemployed or unemployable. So where he says, where Khari Enaharo also then talks about the low proficiency test scores, this is another indicator of Black inferiority, right? It means that Blacks are not learning largely because they are inferior. So it bolsters in the white supremacist psyche that Black people are just inferior. So the educational system or the miseducational system does everything to make you hate yourself. So when you eventually do well, if you eventually do well, it's despite having to deal with or ignore what's happening around you, i.e. being a victim of the system of racism, white supremacy. So if anyone else has anything to add to the teenage unemployment rate, hardcore unemployed or unemployable, or low proficiency test scores, I mute my line.
Very well said, Smoking Damages. For me, the teenage unemployment rate was one that I didn't even know that was something that existed. Because especially when you look at the ages from 16 to 22, so I'm thinking 16, you graduate high school when you're 18, and 22, sometimes you're in college, sometimes you're not. But those seem like years where, I don't know, you usually under the correct conditions and logically, you wouldn't expect like a child to be working, especially if they're still in high school. I mean, I started working at 17, but it wasn't because like I was expected to work or like I was being measured to work. It's just because I wanted some money, but I didn't even know that was such a thing. So to understand that Black people are being, rated or are being measured by these teenage unemployment rates. I mean, I've known a number of white people who didn't get jobs well until their 20s. I've had associates. I've known people that didn't work through high school, didn't work up until they're 26. So that was, that's something that I never knew about. So I thought that was kind of like surprising. Wow, there's a teenage unemployment rate, and the racist white supremacist is measuring this based on how employable Black people are. As far as and the low proficiency test scores, I completely agree with you. Another way for them to measure how inferior Black people are, and I guess it does tie into that. I guess if you under a system of racism and white supremacy, if you have low test scores, that means you're almost retarded. I mean, we all are retarded under a system of racism. But if you're retarded, you can't be employed. And yeah, so mute my line.
Yeah, precisely. And I suspect the low proficiency test scores, that is another way that white people will create documentation on the victim that will follow them for their so-called K through 12 education, that will dictate them being placed in remedial courses that don't prepare them for college or universities, and courses that don't really teach them much of anything of value. It's just a way to separate these so-called low proficiency test score students who the system designs it to be mostly Black people, Black females, Black males, just to separate them from the other students, the other non-Black students, or the other white students. So it's been working, especially so a lot of students will receive these tests and not understand the ramifications of them or the weight that these tests have on their future and on their academic career. They will just bubble in anything. That's what I was doing. I would get standardized tests or whatever, and I didn't take it serious at all. I would just bubble in whatever and make little designs, because I didn't know this was like gonna eventually lead me to being placed in remedial courses, which it always did. I spent more than half of my so-called education in courses that I deemed to be remedial, learning simple stuff that I already knew. And it's just a way for us to be separated from the white kids. Even though I was in a white school, I was still separated from the white students because that's the way the game is played. And as for the hardcore unemployable, they want Black people to be unemployable. This is a case here from Miss Elvita Adams. I'm just gonna read the first two paragraphs. Well, not the first. I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs. The event occurred on December the 2nd, 1979. At the time, Elvita Adams was only 29 years old and struggling to live in New York City. A few months earlier, she lost her job, and since she was living off $100 welfare checks, this wasn't enough to cover her rent, and her landlord was constantly threatening her with eviction. Suffering from depression, there wasn't much for her to do, nor no one to get financial help from. On the brink of desperation and pushed by desperation, Adams found herself lying on the 85th floor ledge of the Empire State Building. The 86th floor houses the famous observation deck where most tourists go to admire New York. So it seems like she attempted to kill herself, but it was prevented. She maybe was saved, or she survived the fall. But yeah, this is the state that they want non-white people, especially Black people, in. They want us to just be, it says here, suffering from depression. The correct term would be suffering from being a victim of racism and white supremacy. We also are informed that she was on welfare checks, which is another thing that white supremacy does to us. It puts us in positions where we need constructive help, and it will give us constructive help in the form of welfare, which is not enough to maintain ourselves or sustain ourselves, and it often like stigmatizes us further. So the biggest welfare system is racism and white supremacy, and it helps white people globally. You know, this is a global welfare system that white people use. So this is very tragic, and I didn't get a job so-called employed until it took me a while. I went through like Urban League, and all sorts of things just to get a pitiful minimum wage job. So yeah, they did make it very hard for victims at one point in time. I'm pretty sure it's still the case for many other areas of the world, that a person with my my hair wouldn't even be allowed to work there without having to cut their hair. So they racist men and racist women have done an excellent job at making it very, very hard for Black people, Black males in particular, to get jobs. And when we do have those jobs, we are the first fired. And when we don't have those jobs, even though we've been trying to find them for so long, we are called, lazy, dumb, and irresponsible. We are called people who don't want to work, they just want to be on the streets. All very effects and telling of the system, that we're in. It will throw the rock and then hide the hand that threw it, and the rock is always landing on Black people, hurting Black people, mistreating Black people classified as Black.
The term comes to mind: last hired, first fired, with what you just said. And when I'm going to speak about teenage unemployment rate. I started working an official job at the age of 14 at summer youth. Have y'all ever experienced summer youth? Do y'all have summer youth in your areas?
No, I do not.
Can't say I do.
Have y'all ever heard of it? Oh, go ahead.
No. I've just never heard of it.
Really? Wow, that's interesting. Okay, so summer youth is where you only work during the summertime, and the city, the mayor, he set up this program, mainly non-white youth, looking for work, and they assign you different jobs. Sometimes you might work in a daycare, you might work in a day camp, you might work in a lunchroom, in a school, jobs like that. And that's my first job, at 14. And I did that in order to buy my clothes for the coming school year, for September. So I could pick out my own clothes, right? Because you don't want your parents to pick them out, because they're not always the fashion, the thing. And I don't remember seeing any white kids. And I noticed that, but kind of put it out of my mind. Then I a little bit older, about 16, 17. Now, mind you, that was 14. So 16, 17, 18, I started doing a bunch of like fast food jobs, McDonald's, Wendy's. I'm sure y'all have heard of that, fast food jobs. And again, even when the jobs were located in so-called white area or areas where they were populated by white people, never saw any white kids. And I'm like, where do they work? I just found it amazing. It was very interesting. I always wonder, where did they work at? Or whatever, when like, how do they get money? How do they, their parents is giving it to them, obviously, but I'm just like, wow, I never see any white kids, teenagers. And that always fascinated me. And I just wanted to bring that up.
Practicing
white children do not work.
Yeah. practicing racism, white supremacy is their
The
job.
safety net, white safety net. They don't have to work.
Oh yeah. Even sorry, I was about to cut you off, but even with the whole homeless housing thing, you know, white people, they're homeless. They don't gotta worry about that. They got a house. They're choosing to be homeless more times than not. I can't say always. I could be an error, but you know, they're choosing to be houseless. You know, to probably experience what Carice is talking about. You know, that's just my opinion about it. And white, like I said, racist child does not work. They do not work. They don't have to. That summer youth that program sounds like it's reserved for non-white children only.
Yeah, as I was saying, practicing and maintaining racism and white supremacy is their job. It's every white person's job. So, yeah, and when the system of white supremacy is their welfare system, it's very evident that many of them do not have to work, and when they are working like jobs, say in a like working caddy jobs for white golf players, you know, working in country clubs and whatnot, doing those sorts of jobs where they don't have to serve people, and if they are serving people, it's white people, you know. It's so very, very telling, very, very telling. When I was working in the movie theaters, we had one white man working on the floor with us. Of course, he was the first to get promoted to assistant manager, even though he wasn't there for very long, and there was many black males and black females who have been there for quite a while and were more deserving of that position. But white people take care of their own, so he was promoted, and him and the other white man just were very, very racist. But yeah, their job on top of that, on their regular job, was maintaining and practicing racism and white supremacy. Any more comments?
Something that I learned later is that either they didn't have to work because their parents supported them, or when they did work, it was internship to, you know, into their future careers. So that's why I didn't see them at those so-called low-level jobs. And speaking about the Summer Youth program, every year it shrinks. The amount of money that they use to fund it shrinks. And I'm like, what are they going to do? And I remember reading in the newspaper where non-white kids were like, oh, they were working to help to support their families, to support their mom and dad and their siblings. And it was just, that's sad. That's really sad.
So the jobs that they were given was basically they were given more constructive help than the black children were given. Basically, the white children were given, from your observation, they were given jobs that would help them in their future careers, whereas the black people, the black children were encouraged to go into kind of jobs that wouldn't help them in future. Yeah.
Correct.
Unsurprising.
Yep, it's just the game has been set up magnificently. It's non-white people. I hope the creator guides you to this sort of information, and we are able to do what needs to be done to solve this problem, because none of us should be comfy or okay with this situation that we are currently in. So 121, school discipline problems. This is another code for Black school children. Whenever this term is used, realize that whites are talking about Black children in urban or so-called inner city school districts. And I'm going to read a little bit from in-school suspicion as well. This means Black children set up in special detention classrooms for greater management and control. The effective majority of students in school suspension programs are Black male. This is by design because white supremacists have devised a school system that is structured to ensure Black dependency and Black failure. The public school system is designed to fail Black children and is not sensitive to the learning styles of Black children. Author Jawanza Kunjufu documents the fourth grade failure syndrome. This means that Black children seem to lose interest with each grade there afterwards. The classroom environment is not structured for high social interaction. It is a sterile environment more compatible with the temperament of the standard white personality. Social interaction dynamics are often viewed as being out of order, a state of chaos, and hard to handle. Highly interactive students are called discipline problems because they won't sit still. This does not take into account the myriad of social and family issues such as hunger, no electricity, no lunch money, and chemical poisoning. The school system automatically brands these children as troublemakers, and this label follows them for many years. And so you will often see Black students getting suspended way more than white students and other non-Black students as well. And I suspect this is to retard us further, you know, if we're not given access to the classroom, the stuff that they think we should be learning, of course we're not learning because we're not there. And when we are there, we are often still not learning because the way it is presented to us is not a way that we can understand, or it's not a constructive way for students to be learning in general. And also, it's really interesting that the fourth grade syndrome, for me, it's very accurate. When I got to sixth grade, I did not give a damn about. I didn't think I was capable of learning. To be 100% honest, I saw those algebra stuff. I saw those mixed fractions. I was like, what the hell? It's just a different language. And in my brain computer, it was a different language because I had not been correctly prepared for any of it. I was and then when I got to middle school, I was suspended so much just for little things, for play fighting, for real fights, for causing so-called class disruptions. I was suspended so much, and it was always Black males in that faculty who were suspending me. I can't even point at a white person. I know the white people behind those Black people. I know there are white people behind those Black people who were suspending me. But it just goes to show you how well trained that they have us. And I remember being in high school as well, and I was in the dean's office for some sort of disciplinary action, and it was two white men. One was the dean, and one was like the principal or assistant principal or something like that. And they were looking at my my grades, and just straight F's, D's, F's and D's. And then they were like, what are you even doing here? Why are you even here? And then I'm going to read this part again. This does not take into account the myriad of social and family issues such as hunger, no electricity, no lunch money, and chemical poisoning. And at that particular time, you know, me and my twin brother, we were living on our own, and our dwelling, because our victim mother was sent on an unwanted vacation, and she was sent to greater confinement for X amount of time. So we spent a lot of our high school, 10th grade or 9th grade career, you know, just living by ourselves, living off microwavable food that was delivered to our house by victim units. Oftentimes we had no power there. So yeah, I just couldn't help but to laugh at this because it reminded me of my real lived existence experiences. So as a shout out to Jawanza Kunjufu and Khari Enaharo for putting this into writing, because yeah, it's very common for all of us. When I was doing work at middle school, I was very much aware that these students are walking past, you know, garbage, victims of racism, who are victims of chemical warfare known as crack. So and also I'm at this school and I'm hearing victim parents come to the school and argue with their children over silly stuff. Like I recall a victim mother coming to the school and arguing with her victim daughter because her daughter used too much of her hair product. And she came to the school to yell at her daughter in front of everybody over this. So these students are being terrorized by the system, terrorized by their victim parents who don't know that they are victims of racism. So we just have we're coming to these indoctrination centers known as schools with so much trauma already, so much incorrectness in our existence already. And then you're like, well, he just has discipline problems. Oh, he's just a slow learner. Just put them in, just bunch them all together. Don't try to remedy the problem they're suffering from. Just, detention for you. I'll put you in remedial class for a couple of years, and then maybe that'll help you. But it's not designed to help us. These schools are not designed to teach us at all, I suspect. And I'll mute my line from see if folks want to chime in.
That reminds me of my sister when she went to high school. She went to Jefferson. She had a teacher. They put her in special ed, and usually when they put you in special ed, it's not because you're slow or whatever. She was just very quiet. So they put her in special ed due to her quietness, but they had a math teacher in her special class that didn't feel like teaching the kids the right things. So of course, other kids are not gonna stand up because they feel like, it's whatever, but she knew she wasn't being taught the right things. And she went to the head and she made a complaint to make sure the teacher did its job or did their part. I think it was a white lady. So it got to a point where eventually they had my sister take a test, like, the quote unquote, if you're smart or not kind of thing, because she was giving the kids the wrong information, but teaching them something they didn't know without really teaching them is what the white lady was trying to do. So eventually my sister got out of there. She started taking all AP classes. But I feel like teachers and schools always try to demand kids because they feel like kids don't know better. And she always was a person that always spoke up and felt like what she knew is what she knew. So that's why in the system of school and education, I guess I can't say that they didn't like her, but they just didn't like being challenged because she knew what she needed to know and what she felt like she needed to know. And I feel like a lot of the children, especially Black children, don't know what they feel like they need to know or what they shouldn't know. It's the same thing when her teacher, her English teacher, I think her history teacher wanted her to write about like a figure. And I think he wanted them to write about Thomas Jefferson or something, one of those, and who they can relate to. And she said, I can't relate to that person because everything that he invented or quote unquote, I guess it was the guy that invented light or something, or a light bulb.
Thomas Edison.
Huh. Yeah. She said she couldn't relate because everything that he did to even start to invent something, he had got help. And she was like, I forgot who she wrote about, but she was like, I can relate to this person because they didn't get help. They did it themselves. So, always teach your kids that in education, it's sometimes your parent has to know what you need to do or what you shouldn't be able to do or what you need to be taught or et cetera, because the people in the school system will always undermine you because you are a kid to them. So always try to, that's why I fight so hard for my child to know to stand up for herself, because the school system will try to make you be in something or do something that you feel like is not right. It's not right, but you won't say anything because you are a kid or you feel like it doesn't matter. They're the adult, they control things. But that should be a lesson learned now, that things could change now as far as the system we in, because we're still being controlled. But we still have a way to say things and know that this is not right either.
100%. I think it's very important that it's significant that your sister, she had it in her brain computer to report to them to probably even document as well. But I think that is folks who may be hearing this and maybe planning on having offspring or who already have offspring, very important to teach your offspring to document incorrect things they perceive to be happening. I wish I had known that when I was a littler boy, a smaller boy. So because so many incorrect things happened to me, so many incorrect situations I was placed in these so-called schools, that if I had known that, hey, I should be documenting this, I should be reporting this, and I should be making reports about what is happening to me because this is incorrect, maybe I would have been able to get a more valuable so-called education. But yeah, please teach your offspring to report, to document things and to take notes. Because often the school is set into a place where it's like the so-called teacher, which that term is even incorrect term, because many of these teachers are not teaching us anything, and all they do is lie to us. So, but the way the school is set up, the teachers are the authority figure, and we're just trained to just listen to them, And I think that's why Khari Enaharo says that the school teaches Black dependency. It teaches us to just be dependent on the system, be docile, to obey the authority figures in the system, which are all white. So, yeah, I guess that's my input.
On page 121, just above the school discipline problems, it says there's a passage there about socially retarded. That Khari Enaharo there. Just a brief aside, I think that in a system of racism, white supremacy, it's correct that we are socially retarded people, because the system actually makes us socially retarded. So I think probably Khari Enaharo probably would have been constructive for him to mention that actually it's true that we are socially retarded. But anyway, on to the school discipline problems and in-school suspensions. When I think about that, it looks like it's almost like the white supremacists, they're not asking the questions, so we should ask the questions. Why are these Black people so disruptive? Why are these Black students or these Black pupils so disruptive at school, if in fact we are more disruptive than white students? A lot of times there's a lot of evidence to show that we're not. We just get in trouble more than the white students or the white pupils do. You can't do exactly the same thing that white people do in the system of white supremacy. You won't get away with that. So, and then later on in life, they then pose the same question in a different way. They say, why are you Black people so angry? Right? So in school, they say, why are you Black people so disruptive? And then later on, they say, why are you Black people so angry? And in terms of, so the system then creates destruction. It creates destruction among non-white people in myriads of ways outside of the school system, and then in the school system as well, because it's still the same system of racism, white supremacy inside of the classroom, the so-called classroom, and you get even more of it. And in the in-school suspension paragraph here on page 121, in the first paragraph, the end of the first paragraph there, it says, this means that Black children seem to lose interest with each grade there afterwards. And I think that's really, I like the fact that Khari Enaharo has included that part there, that last section of that first paragraph there in school suspension. This means that Black children seem to lose interest with each grade there afterwards. So that tells me that the longer you've been on this planet, even when you're a youth, the longer you've been on this planet, you become psychologically more affected by especially by learning that everyone who ever created or ever invented anything useful or decent doesn't look like you. right? If you're taught that at school, of course you're going to be disruptive in school. That's going to have a massive psychological impact on you if you are classified as non-white by the white supremacists. So they create the problem in the minds of the non-white people. So in terms of in-school suspension, my codified definition for in-school suspension, when white people use it, when white people say it, my codified definition for that is, for in-school suspension, is unjust reaction or punishment carried out by white teachers against non-white pupils' inevitable response to racist miseducation.
That remind me of an incident, speaking of suspension, that my daughter had at after school program she's in at her school. And I guess she was trying to play with a child. He wanted to play with the group, but I guess he was taunting everyone by saying that he wanted to play, but he really, in reality, didn't want to play. He just wanted to sit there and stand there and kind of taunt everyone. So I guess it got her so angry that she hit him. And so when I went to go get her, they told me that incident, and they were like, oh, it's not in her character to act like that or to be like that, X, Y, and Z, but we're gonna have to suspend her. And I'm like, okay. So when I went to go pick her up the next day after that incident, and I told my friend, she was like, okay, if that's not in her character and they feel like that's things that she doesn't do, why did they give her a warning? Why did they just suspend her? So then in my brain computer, that's when it made me think like, wow, if they don't give Black children fair warnings, they just, as much as whatever they do is whatever is going to get them the cause to be in trouble. But I did tell her that, there's going to be a lot of things that she's going to want to react to, but it's best that you not, because in this system, that's what they want you to do.
Well, 100%. And also, you must remember, fair, that means white. Fair warning, a white warning. A white child will get many, many so-called fair warnings because, that's their power in the system of white supremacy. But Black children will not be warned. Don't get warnings. Nope, you're suspended. You're missing 3 days of learning. You're missing 3 days of being with other children. So very telling. Very, very telling. And your child being just so constructive and from my experiences with her, just calm and so yeah, that she must have really been drove to some limits, and I'm pretty sure she was being mistreated as well. But that didn't make any difference. The faculty just saw a Black female child, and they did what they've been trained to do, what they've been programmed to do, which is to mistreat her further and by suspending her. So very telling. Hopefully motivation for other parents out there to get serious about teaching their offspring about the system and to help to solve this problem.
I want to read lower the pupil. Can I be heard?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I want to read page 122, lower the pupil teacher ratio, overcrowded classrooms. This is code to reduce the number of Black children in classrooms. Whites say that they cannot manage these Blacks and need combat pay. When I was in elementary school and junior high school, especially junior high school, we had, it's amazing. We had about between 42 to 36 students in one classroom. And that was just way too many. And they were saying back then that, the classes are overcrowded. I'm like, yeah, of course. I mean, could you imagine how many children, how many of us slipped through the cracks, due to the classrooms being overcrowded like that? And then you had the students who, because, okay, if you try to, pay attention, you try to be a so-called good student or whatever, you were picked on by the other people in the back of the class because either they didn't know or because, you're not supposed to be a nerd, right? And then the students that were struggling, that were having trouble, because the teacher wasn't able to get to them, they were extremely disruptive because of that, and troubles at home, etc. And it was just, it's just so sad. Yeah, so I just wanted to bring up that, yeah, I was in a class where it was 36 to 42 students at a time.
I just want to add to that, as a reminder, racist man, I mean, Black people don't control how many students are in a classroom, how many students get placed in a classroom. Racist man, racist woman, maybe even racist child, they dictate that. So for them to put that amount of students or Black children in one classroom, they know exactly what they are doing. And then on top of that, to come and have these white teachers come ask for combat pay. It's disgusting. That is a huge number of students, too, by the way. I've seen some pretty big classes, 30, I think anything over 20 is a lot, but that's just my personal opinion about it. That's it.
All by design. They know students are gonna so-called slip through the cracks, or I would say not receive correct information needed to thrive in an academic environment. So that's by design. And also they throw in a lot of white sacrifices, because white people, from what I've seen, when I've observed classrooms of white teachers and it's that many Black students, they literally become terrified, especially if they can't control the classroom, they become terrified. So very, very interesting. We're gonna I have on this clip Hillary Clinton discussing super predators. We've seen it before, but I've gave it another listen and I have more things to decode from it. And we have a side-by-side of the Predator concept, film, comic book, video games. I suspect created by a white person. And let me see what I should do. Okay, so Khari, I'm just gonna kind of summarize what Khari Enaharo decodes about this film. So the first thing that was very noticeable about this character, the Predator, is that he has dreads. Oh, he has locks. But in this case, they probably could be correctly called dreadlocks because this character is meant to be dreaded by the other characters in the films. Khari Enaharo says that he was dark-skinned, had very thick lips, and was at least 7 feet tall with the movement and agility of a professional athlete. The Predator's face and color were remarkably similar to the facial characteristics of an average Black male. Perhaps this is what some white people see when they see a Black person, but the lock is very telling that they're comparing this creature to a Black person. And also he says that in the film, like the character, the Predator, he could attack at any moment. You don't really know when he's gonna attack. He spends most of the time cloaked and using his technology. And so this film essentially is a super racist coded message to other white people who are getting it. And I'm gonna play this clip here, and we're gonna discuss it further. I have more notes to share about this. Oh, and also he mentions in Predator 2, the Predator is called Super Predator, and the movie starts off with the Los Angeles and the LAPD. Danny Glover's role and presence in the film as a hard-fighting cop gave the film the cover needed to slip across several racist messages. Black males were portrayed as aliens, drug dealers, crazy and out of control, superstitious, voodoo worshiping criminals. The physical image of the predator made a clear statement about racial identity. It left no doubt that the predator was a giant Jamaican or Rastafarian black male. At the same time as the release of the two films, the connection of predators and predatory behavior to young black males began to escalate. Media reports and news articles boldly talked about the evolution of the new young criminal class in the inner city. Black youth were being tagged as predators or a new breed of criminals that could commit crimes without any hesitation, moral regret, or social redemptions. A sort of black version of the Stanley Kubrick's characters in Clockwork Orange. Now I'm going to play this clip where Hillary Clinton is saying some very telling things about her thoughts on the criminals, gangs, and whatnot.
The fourth challenge is to take back our streets from crime, gangs, and drugs. And we have actually been making progress on this.
Can y'all hear this?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
As a nation, because of what local law enforcement officials are doing.
I can't hear.
I can't hear it now.
Okay, so you guys were able to hear it because it was going through my mic and not the correct sound channel.
What citizens and neighborhood patrols are doing, we're making some progress. Much of it is related to the initiative called community policing, because we have finally gotten more police officers on the street. That was one of the goals that the president had when he pushed the crime bill that was passed in 1994. He promised 100,000 police. We're moving in that direction, but we can see it already makes a difference. Because if we have more police interacting with people, having them on the streets, we can prevent crimes. We can prevent petty crimes from turning into something worse. But we also have to have an organized effort against gangs. Just as in a previous generation we had an organized effort against the mob. We need to take these people on. They are often connected to big drug cartels. They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way, but first we have to bring them to heel. And the president has asked the FBI to launch a very concerted effort against gangs everywhere. In addition to that, he has appointed a new drug czar. You probably saw him Tuesday night. He's one of the most distinguished active military generals that we have in our country. He's already proven that he knows how to interdict drugs because of his command of the South American activity on behalf of the United States. But General McCaffrey will make a big difference, and I believe it is now time for all of us to know what we can do individually to be part of this anti-crime, anti-gangs, anti-drug effort. The fifth challenge is to protect.
Famous words from white people. These people decoded as those niggers. Bringing the, and again, pay attention to the use of kids. You know, the correct term for small people is children, but she says a gang of kids. You know, you're in a racist mind, that could easily mean a gang of animals, a group of animals that need to be brought to the hill. You know, put on their knees and backs. You know, subdued. Also, super predators, you know, worse than the average predator, like Jeffrey Dahmer, you know, Gacy, Son of Sam, and just so many serial killers that I can't even, I could spend all day naming them. Ed Buck, not those kind of predators, but super predators, you know, who I guess look like this creature here. But just the criminalization of Black males, Black youth is Black females as well. It's just so obvious, so overt, and I'm sure this terminology has only evolved. So, but before I'm gonna continue on this code word here, and I'm gonna I'm just gonna read a little bit more from 123, and wow, the same year as this. This is the same year as this clip right here, as so it's very interesting. But it says on 123, in regards to predator slash super predator. In 1996, a book called Body Count, Moral Poverty and How to Win America's War Against Crime and Poverty. I'm going to pause there, decode it as War on Black People, by William Bennett, J. Dulio, and John P. Walters, was highly touted in white circles. In this book, the authors clarify Black youth as super predators. The comment of John J. DeLulio are especially illuminating and should set off alarms. He calls Black youth a ticking demographic crime bomb that will soon explode. The ticking means that something or someone is unpredictable and ready to go off at any time. It requires that people be on guard at all times. The word demographic is a code word for the targeted Black population. In inner city areas, the word crime is a code word for Black male. The bomb means gang warfare at a level that could put an entire metropolitan area under siege, similar to the opening scenes of Super Predator movie, which is Predator 2, if you don't know about that title. Dulio shrewdly associates moral poverty with urban America while pretending sensitivity to the plight of Black youth. Listen to the sound of the code term, moral poverty. This is a very disturbing combination of words. What is moral poverty? Does this mean that little Black savages are uncivilized baby-making jungle bunnies? The horrors wreathed on the world by the brutal and barbaric behavior of white supremacy lends little credence to talk of morality. The system of white supremacy has killed so many millions of non-white people that the real number of destroyed civilizations may be unknowable. If this scenario is to be believed, what are implications for Black people? The implications are not good. The conversation of racists would go on something like this. Why invest in a people or a community that is breeding a criminal class? Why not simply destroy them because they are morally decayed and mentally bankrupt? Don't waste good money and resources. It's like throwing good money after bad. And this clip here, Hillary Clinton says they're making progress, they're making progress. And Yurugu, from my understanding of that text, allows me to understand that progress is just them being able to practice white supremacy to infinity, them being able to maintain their control over us, them being able to conduct population tailoring on us, and through greater confinement or through outright killing us. And that's what's been going on. We have this slogan come about called saying defund the police, but that hasn't really happened. They're still increasing the number of race soldiers out on the field, and they're still locking up non-white people, especially Black people, at large numbers. So the progress is still happening. Progress equals maintaining, expanding, and refining the system of white supremacy. And what group of people, what correct thinking group of people will classify victims as super predators when they have a history of being super predators, killing in large numbers, raping in large numbers, stealing in large numbers? Still, not only will still land and resources, but we're still those people on the land. And this is the kind of thinking we're dealing with. I think it's very incorrect thinking, insane thinking. So this is what we're dealing with. It's the problem we are trying to solve. Racist men and racist women are masters of what they do, and what they do is maintain their system of white supremacy, domination,
Yeah, I find it very interesting the words that she uses, right? Understanding race, trying to understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works. It's like she's trying to completely take the attention away from white people and the possibility that, hey, that they can also be doing a lot of incorrect things, or, you know, in general, practicing racism. Instead, focus on the Black people who have been heavily victimized by the system. Focus on what they are going to do. Focus on the fact that due to the severe lack of logic, the severe lack of resources, the severe lack of financial compensation, or even compensation in general, focus on these Black people that that we are creating to be monsters and monstrosities. Focus on them, because they are coming to get you. They're coming to attack you, making people completely afraid. And just like you mentioned, O5, you know, there are people like Jeffrey Dahmer, Ed Buck out there. They are predators, but the Black people that we have neglected, that we've been practicing racism on, the monsters that we've created, focus on them. They are the true super predators. They are the people that you need to be worried about. Not us. There's nothing at this point, you know, and at this point, there's nothing we can do for them. You know, they are, and that's kind of what this author is also saying, right? There's nothing that we can do for them. All you can do is pony up, get your guns, round them up, slaughter them all, kill them all in the streets. You know, pretty much that is what I decode that as. That's what I interpret that as. Also, the use of the word moral poverty. That is very interesting, especially considering racist man and racist woman. I mean, where do you you just have to laugh, because who do they think they are to come up with a term and associate that with Black people, the term moral poverty, after chattel slavery, after Jim Crow, after the civil rights movement. And people like Hillary Clinton are gonna say Black people are morally deprived. This white author is gonna call Black youth living in moral poverty. It's all very interesting, and this is the kind of stuff that Black people, non-white people, really need to pay attention to. Because if not, you will continue to be deceived and confused about the actual arrangement that we live on this planet, with racist man and racist woman, and those white people who practice racism, white supremacy. That's all. Well, actually, too, also when I thought of moral poverty, I also did think of Urugu as well. You know, the projection, Urugus do it best. That's all I can say about that. Especially when it comes to terms of moral poverty.
Yeah, exactly. The whole rhetorical ethic, you know, presenting themselves to be clandestine and benevolent, and presenting everyone non-white, especially Black people, to be morally bankrupt, using their terminology. Huge projection, masters of words, masters of dominating the planet, as they've proven to do so while doing it. So I'll go ahead, Smoky Damages.
Yeah, when I read this part here, predator, super predator, I did think, I mean, going back to, I didn't actually even expect Khari Enaharo to tie the whole phrase super predator with the actual film, The Predator, right? Because I guess in the interest of full disclosure, well, I sound like I'm in a courtroom, but just a full disclosure, one of the first video films that I actually, when I first got my first video recorder many moons ago, that was actually one of the first video films I actually watched, was the film The Predator. And yeah, I remember when we were looking at, when we first saw the monster creation, in that we were thinking, wow, that the dreads really just they look like like a black person's dreads. And but just for interest of clarity, when Khari Enaharo says his facial features and color were cloaked until the final segments of the film, that is actually not true, because I'm very, very familiar with that film. It's one of my favorite films. I watched that film probably. I've watched that film. I wouldn't even like to say how many times I've watched that film, but that's not true. Probably well before the middle of the film, the predator, you get to have a good look at the predator, and yeah, so that's not true. And also when it says he was dark skinned and had very thick lips and was at least 7 foot tall. The predator is at least 7 foot tall, but the predator, from what I've looked at, from when I've seen the predator, I've seen quite a few films of the predator, and dark skinned. I think there's parts of the predator that's dark skinned, but when you actually get a good look at the predator, it's not. There's like light skins, like light. He looks like some kind of weird amphibian that's got light patches and dark patches on his skin. And thick lips. I think if anyone's ever looked at the actual predator in the first Predator or the second one or any other film that you can see the predator in, the predator does definitely not have. Doesn't even look like he has lips. Predator definitely doesn't. He's got fangs. They even look like he's got lips. So I don't know quite what Khari Enaharo was talking about on that bit. And it also says, let me see, the predator's face and color were remarkably similar to the facial characteristics of an average black male. If anyone was to look at a picture of the predator, I don't think the predator's face actually looks anything like any black person that I've ever seen in my entire life. But anyway, and also the second paragraph when he said the movie was followed up by Super Predator. The second film in the sequence of the Predator films is actually just called Predator 2. It's not called Super Predator at all. Yeah, it's not called Super Predator. It's just called Predator 2. Anyone can just have a look at the second film title and you see it's called Predator 2 and not Super Predator. So I'm not really sure what Khari Enaharo was talking about in the second paragraph either. And the last bit here that struck me as a bit funny as well, when he said the opening scene of the movie this is talking about the second film, which is Predator 2, not Super Predator. He says the opening scene of the movie was a gun battle between black gangs in LA and the LAPD. And that's not true either, because I'm very, very familiar with the second film as well, which is called Predator 2, as I said before. And it's not a gun battle between black gangs in LA. It's actually a gun battle which they even describe in the film as well. And if you see that second film for yourself, you can see they're classified as like white Mexicans or white Latino people. It's not black gangs at all. Like I say, I'm very, very familiar with both of those films. So again, I'm not quite sure why he's put these descriptions in there, apart from, like I said, the obvious descriptions there with the predators having the dreads and moving like a black athlete and stuff. I think that's very true what the author said there in the description of the predator. And to get to the actual term super predator, though, I do agree with him completely what he's talking about, how the author describes the word or the phrase super predator. And yeah, I think I agree with the author there where he says that it just basically means black violent people are worse than white violent people. And it's just another example of white people classified as white, probably white supremacists, showcasing specifically black violent crime as somehow worse than white people's violence. So my compensatory term for when white people use the term super predator is term meant to induce fear in the minds of white and non-white people that black people specifically are wild, violent beasts. And that's all I've got to say about super predators.
Thanks for that clarity. I am quite familiar with the lore of Predator and Aliens, which I think they're very similar, and they're being coded as racist messages. But the Yaijas, which is the race of aliens called predators, there's the regular predators in the lore, and then there are super predators within this lore of this concept known as predators. And maybe he's referring to that. Maybe he's read some of the comics, and he's aware of the Yaija has like classes, warrior classes, and one of the warrior classes is the super predators, which may have been featured in the second film versus the classic Predator. But in this comic universe, film universe, they are called super predators, and so that could be some clarity. And this reminds me of the Alien film, which is also a film about a black alien that I interpret it as, you know, it injects, it basically rapes you, because when it attacks you, you end up pregnant with his egg, and then the egg bursts out of you. I think that's also a racist code about just to produce fear in Black people. And that's what your comments reminded me of. It also reminded me of the Alien. But I think you're correct. I don't, unless he's unless he's interpreted his jaws as thick. Yeah, I really am not understanding that part of the text where he says that the predator has thick lips. But when he's in this when he's in his mask and this form right here, yeah, I can definitely get the vibe that this is supposed to be a scary black male who could be out shooting hoops, but instead he's hunting white people. Very interesting.
I completely agree with you with the black alien as well. Like, hey, I'm very, very familiar with the Alien films as well. And yeah, it's funny. The black aliens, they always show, it's like I guess like what they call interspecies rape in some sort of funny way. And it is funny how the black alien, clearly a black alien, right, is always raping these white people. It's always impregnating these. So it kind of preys, I guess, on people who is classified as white people's fears on running away from these black demons or these black aliens that want to rape white people. Yeah, and most of the times in these films, the alien films, so these black aliens are always trying to rape these white people, impregnating them. And yeah, interesting. Didn't think of that. 05.
This majority of the content they produce is very coded. And the race war, there's actually a comic within the Alien universe where there's a planet, Earth is overrun by the black aliens, and they've mutated into red aliens, and the red aliens are trying to kill the
black
people.
I see that one. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. So they changed it to the red aliens. Yeah.
I'm like, that's definitely the race war 101 right there, if you're able to decode it correctly. So very interesting. White people are very serious about their business of white supremacy. They'll spend countless hours, time, energy devising, writing, planning these storylines and producing this content for us to consume, and we are just being indoctrinated with racist logic. So it's our job to understand what we're consuming and to decode it correctly. So
I wanted to ask a question. What Predator movie was it when the Predator went into that place and he was in the bathroom and he was looking in the mirror?
Oh wow. It sounds like
that's
two.
Number 2. That's number 2. That was number 2, and it's definitely called Predator 2, not Super Predators.
That part of the movie I always stuck in my head because I guess that's when I sympathize with him the most, when he's looking in the mirror.
Oh wow. That's very interesting. Yeah, and then Is this yeah? If this is a character in the film, it's Smoking Diamond. Just this guy on the screen. Is he a character in the film?
I can't see that. If you can make that a bit bigger, let me see which one. Because I'm only on my phone here.
Okay. If we can, we don't have to spend too much time on this. But I see.
I can't really.
But I noticed his logs have those things on them, those beads on them, those little rings on them, and the Predator also has the same thing on his head.
Oh, that, yeah. He's a character in you're talking about King Willie, I think they call him. I think it's King Willie or King, well, and we all know the euphemism there. We know that propaganda, right? So they gave the black character either King, I think it's King Willie or King Billy, but I think it really is King Willie, right? And then he dies in the most horrible way in the film as well. He gets a horrible. I mean, he gets beheaded and all that kind of stuff. He tries to fight the Predator's sophisticated weaponry with a sword, and like how they try to project black people was just so stupid. You're gonna find someone that's got infrared tracking devices, massive machine gun weaponry, and stuff like that, and this black person's gonna go over and trying to poke at the Predator with sticks or a sword, right? So you know what the white supremacists are trying to say there, and obviously, and this is what I look at as a kind of a metaphor for black people who talk about, we're just going to go and fight these white supremacists, where the white supremacists would enjoy that immensely if we had a physical race war on the streets right now. We're not in that position to go and do that to white supremacists. But that's a character called King Willie in the second film. Terrible. And he's also got locks, got dreadlocks as well. The program is not even subtle, the indoctrination in that second film.
That is such a pattern I've detected as well. They'll show like Army of the Dead. We did a decoding of that, and there's a scene where the black male rushes towards the alpha zombie, the strongest zombie in the film. He tries to fight the zombie hand-to-hand combat and loses, of course. So they love presenting that like the so-called strong, powerful black male. Just ridiculous.
No, I guess it goes without saying as well, in the recent Harriet Tubman film, the worst, main bad character in that film was called Bigger Long. I mean, hey, it's called Bigger Long. I can't, anyway, expected.
Wow. Okay, alrighty. From 124, I'm sure the audience who watched the video will appreciate the Area 3 discussion, because folks seem to love that. Appreciate that. Love is not real currently on planet Earth. So 124, public assistance / welfare. This code is used when white political arena and denigrate and defile black females. This is one of the most powerful and useful political code terms devised. It has become one of the crudest weapons used to classify and destroy generations of black people. The labeling process is so effective that black people regurgitate this language without understanding the social ramifications. I'm going to read another one really quickly. For 124, welfare reform. This code means let's get black people off the public road. The language is clear and direct. It was part of the rallying cry of white conservatives from the era of Reagan, from the Reagan administration. This wording was used by the Clinton administration to cut welfare spendings and reduce welfare rolls. And growing up, I always wondered, why is there so many like crazy black people wandering around all the time? And then someone mentioned Reagan and how he got rid of all of the mental institutions that were attempting to correct the problems facing that particular problem facing black people, the whole mental situation. And that is so-called welfare reform that should be seen as nothing more than another act of terrorism from racist men and racist women, taking away facilities and resources that Black people need, to the point where now we're just crazy on the streets, wandering around, getting beat up by police, not understanding what's happening, because we have been driven even more insane. We're already functionally insane in the system, but some Black people are driven more insane to the point of schizophrenia and that like. And public assistance slash welfare, yeah, no person should be mocked or mistreated for needing and wanting constructive help. But what do they call Black females? Welfare queens. And I've seen so many Black females say it was like what he said, regurgitate the same nonsense, calling Black females welfare queens. Yeah, that's why the Black community, so-called Black community, it's such a bad shape, because we got all these welfare queens and all these game bangers who don't want to work. So very, very tragic. I'm glad these are in here, and I'm glad I'm able to understand these concepts much better, because yeah, welfare is needed by everyone. Everyone needs help. Criminally, white people are getting the most help. They're getting the most welfare from the system of white supremacy, and that is incorrect. Everyone who needs help should receive help, and the people who need help the most right now on planet Earth are people who have been classified as Black, because we have been the most brutalized, the most dominated, and the most mistreated for 400 years plus, to give the numbers stated by Khari Enaharo. Any comments or notes to share from other folks?
I just wanted to read what I have highlighted for Savage. It's the very last line on page 124. This word must be watched very carefully, as its acceptance without challenge signals the beginning of a return to hardcore supremacy. I think that's very important. I think that should be said.
Correct. So 125, failed schools. This is a universal code term for Black schools or Black dominated education systems. White supremacists consider any control by Black people over any public school program the same as a failed school or failed education system. Makes a lot of sense. I've noticed that they won't allow Black principals to remain in that position for very long, that they will often shuffle them in and out. It was communicated to me that the assistant principal that I worked under when I was doing my program there, she told me that she was blackballed from the school system. She was literally blackballed for trying to teach Black children in a manner that they can actually receive constructive information. And for that, she was blackballed. She's currently writing a book about how to teach Black babies from the womb to adulthood. So that should be something to look forward to. Socially disadvantaged, but yeah, socially disadvantaged from 125. This code term means that Black people are in an inferior position in the social order. These and many other code words that are not listed are used regularly on the job and in political commercials, marketing strategies, government proposals, television and radio nightly news reports, talk shows, classroom business meetings, and police reports. I'm going to skip to the part I have highlighted.
Wait a minute, let me read.
Okay.
Because I have to highlight it too. Very last part of 125. This does not mean that every person that uses these terms is a racist or perpetuates racism. Many Black and white people use these words out of habit or without having a full understanding of their powerful and crushing impact. I respectfully disagree. I respectfully disagree, especially when he said white people use these words out of habit. Yeah, they use them out of habit, but they also understand what they're saying. Words define the image, and in the modern world, image is everything. Language implants images, symbols, and words into the mindset. The manipulative power of racial code wording and imaging is awesome. I respectfully disagree with that other part.
Yeah, I also underline that part as well, where the author did say this does not mean that every person that uses this term is a racist or perpetuates racism. I think if they're using this as a race code, as a race code or a racially coded term, the term socially disadvantaged, if a white person, someone who's classified as white, uses it, I think I respectfully disagree with the author too. I think if a white person uses that term, even if a white person doesn't use that term, I think just sticking to the counter-racist code that I follow, every white person, if they're able to practice racism, white supremacy, they probably do. So I respectfully disagree with the author there.
Understood. I think a very significant part is that words define the image, and in a modern world, image is everything. Language implants images, symbols, and words into the mindset. This manipulative power of racial code wording and imaging is awesome. That's that awesome white power that we learn about from the code book and from any book that is seriously discussing racism and white supremacy. And I agree that if white people are using terms like socially disadvantaged, that is a form of deceit, of concealing truth. White supremacy is maintained mostly on words and deceit, and white people have become masters of both deceit and words. So even if a white person may be perceived to be a less intelligent white person, they should at the very least know what is disadvantage, like what is causing the so-called disadvantage that Black people are experiencing, like what is the root cause of it. They should know that the root cause is always racism, white supremacy, but they are rarely seen saying that truth, presenting that truth to the masses.
Exactly.
And here we go into the race code word meanings. I'm going to read the second paragraph. It says, in our highly coded cultural environment, words in particular must be surgically precise. If it is determined that a word is racially derogatory, the statements should be restated without the use of any color-coded embeds and implications. From normal social dialogue, the new non-racist wording must be repeated in private and public social settings so that they can gain verbal, psychological, and sociological validity. The following are identified code words and terms with the real meanings attached. The list shows what a racist really means when he or she uses these phrases. The importance of codified language, thought, speech, and action. If white supremacy is mostly maintained on words, then it's our duty to make sure we're using the counter words, the correct words in our thought and speech. And because that's the only way that they're gonna get picked up on by other victims. That's the only way that we're gonna solve this problem, if we get a large number of Black people who are actually using codified thought. So, when you're trying to, I see this often, too many times, when you're trying to use a word that you think means balance and equal, don't use the word fair. Use the word correct or incorrect. If you're discussing a black male or a black female, do not call them black men or women, because that is a lie. Call them black males. Black females are victims of racism. There's so many words. I think most of us here have the word guide, and have read the code book. So, we have to follow and practice this code and spread it to other victims. So I just highlighted a couple of words here. Abortion is a code word. Decoded racist meaning means non-white population control, aka population tailoring. White people playing the numbers game, deciding how many black people to get rid of, how many non-white people to get rid of. Athletic ability, animal or horse-like nigger creatures. Birth control, reduce non-white population growth. We had an excellent discussion on that in one of our meetings. Crack, niggers doing drugs. The hood, dangerous and wild areas. So this is a really useful section of the book. You see something suspicious, you're reading an article, or you're listening to some news broadcast, and you hear a suspicious sounding word, turn to page 126, and you may be able to find that word here, that phrase here.
I had some words that I wanted to read off. That's fun.
Go for it.
So for race code word meanings, I'm gonna read the word and then followed by the decoded racist meaning. I had AIDS epidemic, oversexed Negroes was the decoded racist meaning. I thought that one was pretty interesting because early on, AIDS was highly associated with gay white males, and now the meaning is oversexed Negroes. Very interesting. Diversity, a modern method of racial management. Also very interesting and very very accurate. Endangered species, meaning reduce the black male population. This one I thought was also a good one, but I think the word has changed, the one I'm about to read right now, or the code word or term has changed. So we have female heads of households, which I think now has been, I personally think the term has changed to strong, independent black female, which means nigger women in charge. And then food stamps, nigger stamps. White people are on welfare more than black people are. Just gotta throw that in there. And then menace to society, black males who need to be locked up. I think in this he mentioned, in the book he mentioned a movie. I had seen it too. It was on Netflix. Was it The Color Orange or that one by Stanley Kubrick? You know me out.
A Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange, yeah, menace to society. So white people, they are the original menaces to society. But now black males, it means black males who need to be locked up. What are the black males doing? Probably nothing. Probably nothing. It's just illegal to be black. Let's just get it straight. Those were the words that I wanted to read off for that. I don't know if anybody else has them.
Yeah, I have a couple more. Gang violence, black savagery, NBA, National Black Association or nigger ball, lazy, dumb, and irresponsible, stupid Negroes, and there's tons. This is a very constructive portion of the book. Special education.
I want to read off one. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, special education. Black students are naturally mentally inferior. Those people, we heard Ms. Clinton say this in her little chat, her little speech. Those people equals black people. War on drugs, war on black people. I hope we weren't going to read that one, Ms. Helen. And welfare, lazy black females having babies.
I was going to read taking responsibility. That's something that so-called white conservatives, white people say, take responsibility. The coded word for that, the coded term for that is don't blame the white man for your problems. It should be don't blame white man, white woman for your problems.
correct. Anyone else want to read some, have some terms highlighted from there?
Really the same types of ones I highlighted were quite a lot of the ones that you guys highlighted as well. The athletic ability, where Khari Enaharo says when you basically when white people say athletic ability, they are usually talking about the way they see it as animal or horse-like nigger creatures. And I thought, yeah, that's an accurate description. Usually when you hear them talking about black athletes on TV, that's exactly how it sounds like they're describing us. Also, drug raid as well. Drug raid is highlighted as catching niggers using drugs. I think we've gone into this on this channel before, like the amount of times when the race soldiers go out on so-called drug raids. What they usually do is go to chase, just catching niggers using drugs. They just walk right past white people using drugs and they go directly to where black people are just to go. It's another excuse to just go out and hunting black people. So yeah, minorities usually means less than or inferior to white people. Yeah, lots and lots of, I think Khari Enaharo has done an excellent constructive effort here in highlighting some race code phrases or words and giving some excellent definitions for what the white supremacists probably mean when they use these terms.
Thank you, everyone, for your sharing. So last week, there was words that folks wanted to discuss, and I forgot to mention, it was on the back of my mind, but loud music is the code word or term, and nigger music, that nigger music is what is decoded as. And this is what the white man in my brain computer who killed Jordan Davis for when he shot in a car full of black males because they were playing music. Thug music is also what he called it, but that's also can be decoded as nigger music. So yeah, loud music is super prevalent in the system of white supremacy. Black people are always getting in trouble for playing music that white people don't agree with. It could also be decoded as noise complaints. You get a lot of noise complaints. You're probably a black male, black female who is playing sounds that white people perceive to be nigger music, aka loud music. And there's another word, obesity, and it means big black females. I'm just gonna play.
Could I be doing something? Oh, we're dancing. I am 100%, and I'm only getting better. Oh. Yeah, here I come. Okay, that's a yeah. I am 100%, and I'm only getting better. I am 100%, and I'm only getting better.
All right, so yeah, it's more of that normalizing incorrect fitness, normalizing incorrect body mass. Yeah, white supremacists would love, if y'all seen Wall-E, they would love an entire population of non-white people, especially black people, to be in that state, unable to care for yourself. We need the Yurugu tools and technology to sustain yourself and to survive. Obese and totally okay with it is what they would super love. Instead of body equality, can we get justice on planet Earth? Because that's something to promote, not this nonsense. So again,
sorry.
Real quick. Go ahead.
Real quick, I just wanted to read obesity because it is in this word guide. It says big black female, but here again we have a white female, big white female, but only when you're obese. I guess what you call this is body equality when it's a white female. With a black female, that's obesity. Okay.
Yeah, and they're also pushing this thing called body positivity, which is convincing large numbers of non-white people, especially Black people, that being obese is okay, unless you're obese for specific health reasons that you cannot control. No one should be obese. No one should think that being in a body that is more susceptible to heart disease, high blood pressure, early death. No one should think that it's okay to be in that sort of body. But white people are normalizing the subtle suicide that being obese promotes and causes. Kelly, did you want to share any words on this? Obesity?
Nope, you covered it.
Understood. And so from one, here we go.
Oh, well, let me add real quick. Notice how non-white Black females, they're encouraged to be big, but white females, you see the white female in front, yes, but don't worry, white people will encourage her behind the scenes, to lose weight, like Rebel Wilson, like Amy Schumer, but people push up other non-white Black females to be
Adele.
big. That Adele, that's another one. Yes, see how she lost the weight. So yeah, and this is yeah.
Alrighty. I would like some help reading the page 130, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll read the first two paragraphs, and if someone can read the second two, that would be really helpful. So from 130, I'm gonna read the first two paragraphs. I hope someone can help me by reading the other two.
Okay, I'll chime in after you then.
All right, thank you. When a code word is identified, it must be decoded so that the exact meaning is discovered. The truth in a racially coded social environment is often hidden behind a wall of deception so that a false perception emerges. For example, if a coded statement says, urban dwellers sell drugs, while this is a partially accurate assertion, the major question is, where do the urban dwellers get the drugs? And what is meant by the word urban? Who controls the flow of drugs and who makes the big money? Without the flow of drugs, urban dwellers are decoded. Black people would not be able to sell or buy drugs. One thing is clear, Black people do not control or direct the flow of drugs here or abroad. When describing social problems affecting Black people, the words that are used must tell the whole truth.
Yeah, you gonna go, Helen, or should I?
I was gonna go. You go next, please. The objective is to eliminate the deception by countering the resulting confusion with clarity. The words used must define the problem in a correct manner and with consistent terms so that it leave no doubts about the who, what, and why of any given situation. Go smoke a damn juice.
To do this, language must cut through the fat and get straight to the bone. Words have to be used with such surgical accuracy that confusion is minimized and clarity is maximized. Purposely misdirected or disjointed words and sentences that say nothing are misleading and more confusing than clarifying. The success of the race code word game is based on deception and confusion. This is one of the reasons why the white supremacist continuously shifts and redefines the problems impacting Black people. One day, the Black problem is economic disenfranchisement, and the next hour, it will shift to political apathy, while tomorrow, it will be moral deterioration. The lack of a consistent, precise, accurate, and truthful definition of the problem affecting Black people has led to great confusion. This, of course, is part of the language strategy to hide racism in plain sight by diffusing coherent, counter-racist thinking. The racist uses words that redefine the problem in 100 different ways.
Thank you. And this is how we spent it went from Jim Crow to the civil rights to integration, and now it's like, we need to fix the schools. We need to. It's just so many terms that they use. Never once calling it a system of white supremacy, a global system of white supremacy. So this is I appreciate this portion of the text because it just gives you a clear example of why we need to be super, super precise and accurate with our words, and how white people, it allows me to just give even more appreciation to the context of white supremacy by Gus T. Renegade, because they will just use buckets and buckets of words, jargon, just tons of jargon whenever I'm in a meeting with my old professor, just jargon, just so many words to describe anything, and that is perhaps their nature, how they've been conditioned for so long to do so. And I really appreciate this part right here, the last paragraph as well, which is very accurate. The root cause of all of the problems facing Black people is white supremacy domination. Black people are wholly dependent, totally controlled by white domination. All of the social, political, and economic situations are a direct result of living under white domination for 400 years plus. The preceding list contains the correct statements, correct and exact language. The preceding list contains correct statements. Correct and exact language is discouraged, condemned, or rerouted and labeled as racist. So this is how they project. If we were to speak this way, and like any form, really, it's very possible that we will be deemed Black racist, which is not even a possible thing to be if you understand the system of white supremacy. And he continues, the use of correct words puts the spotlight on the real perpetrators and identifies the behavior and deeds of the racists as the real problem. Instead of addressing the situation, words are used as a weapon to duck the responsibility of producing justice. So this is what white people have been doing. They've been masterfully, like Neo. Imagine Neo in the Matrix 1 when he like bends back and dodges all those bullets. That's why people dodging their deeds, their actions of maintaining white supremacy and avoiding getting serious about producing justice. Just have that scene in mind. What I just said, white people are masters of just avoidance. Jargon spewers, will say that they're going to do a ton of things, but if you really investigate what they've said, most of it won't even make sense. Or if it doesn't make sense, they're further sabotaging Black people, saying they're going to help racism by creating more, saying they're going to help racism or end racism by creating more prisons. It doesn't make any sense at all. Go ahead, Ms. B.
Okay, so on page 132, the last paragraph is something that I disagree with, and I would like to read. When racial code words are used in dialogue, political speeches, or everyday conversation, an individual can respond by clarifying the statement with a response utterance that begins with, "Oh, you mean?" This is the beginning of a response designed to correct a racially coded statement. Okay, now this is where I disagree. You don't say, "Oh," well, he said what he said.
Mm-hmm.
Read your cue. "Oh, you mean?" No, you ask, "What do you mean by that?"
Yeah,
what is the definition of the words that that you're using? You don't say, "Oh, you mean."
Yeah.
And then you go on into correcting. Just a suggestion, always stay in the question and answer lane.
Yeah, I appreciate this part, but yeah, I gotta put it in question mode. Oh, do you mean? Like if someone mentions abortion, you can say, instead of saying, oh, you mean, like the author suggests, you can say, oh, do you mean non-white population management? Or you just ask them what they mean, and then you can suggest a better definition, or just suggest that term shouldn't really be used. And if someone says, oh, Black people have such amazing athletic ability, you can say, oh, do you mean the animalization of Black males? Is that what you're talking about? So
no, like I'm saying no. I'm saying don't even finish it for them. Ask them and wait for an answer. Don't even finish. You know the decoding, right? But when it comes to white people, I'm suggesting that you ask the question. Don't even finish it for them. Oh, you mean X, Y, and Z? No. I'm going to ask the question and wait for them to answer.
Oh yeah, I got that 100%. But for other exercises, presenting victims and white people with this information could have some constructive results. Unlikely when talking to a white person, because they probably may already know the meaning. But when talking to other victims who may be more confused, we should ask the question, what do you mean by that? And we should offer these decodings if given that opportunity.
Correct.
And go ahead. Looking at images.
Yeah, I agree with what I agree definitely with what Helen B just said there, because that bit struck me as a little confusing as well. I think it probably is more constructive to ask a question and stay in that question lane. I guess I'm guessing, this is only my guess, that probably the author has just obviously given his own definitions, his own thoughts on what the white supremacists mean when they say abortion, and what the white supremacists mean when they say civil rights, and what they mean when they say diversity, etc. He's given his own definition of what he thinks that the white supremacists might mean. But I guess I do agree with what Helen B was saying there, where it can, if we're not encouraging ourselves, I guess, to remain in the question lane, then, and we go with these definitions, maybe the white person in question doesn't mean that. So if we ask the white person, what do you mean when you use the word diversity? What do you mean? And then don't help them with the answer. They might give a complete different definition to what the author Khari Enaharo has written here as well, because his definition, or what he thinks white people mean when they say the word diversity, he's given the illusion of confusion, that this is what white people mean when they use the word diversity. I don't even think that that's what white people mean when they say that. Now you see, so I'm a non-white person, he's a non-white person. That might cause, right? Because usually I don't think they are trying to give you the illusion of inclusion, because I mean, so what if they include you? So what if a white person includes a non-white person in things, you know? So have how does having different colored people in a particular area or space lead to the elimination of racism, white supremacy, right? Diversity obviously doesn't work. So I don't think that some white people would even think that, you know, when they use the word diversity, it means the illusion of inclusion. So yeah, I can see how this kind of bit here leads to some kind of confusion, and probably to best avoid the confusion is probably best to just ask the white person a question, and they'll help them with the answer, like Neely Fuller Jr. suggests in his code. But you know, that's just my VGQ. I guess everyone else is probably whatever works for non-white people. They can just go with their own code.
I don't disagree with the author, and I think that the author has come very close to what white people mean when they use certain terms. Correct. But I just want, on top of, now I've read this book, I know what the author says, and I do believe that he's correct. But I also want to hear from white people what they say as well, just for clarity. I don't want to assume, I don't want to guess. I want to get straight from the horse's mouth. But I believe the author is very close to the truth and correct in his in his conclusion.
I agree. Very, very comprehensive list that the authors provided here as well.
Yeah, he calls these precise words that tell the truth, and I think a lot of them are very constructive. Minus a few. He says drugs, race chemicals. That sounds very, very correct. Drug zone. What he means is areas where race chemicals are allowed to exist. AIDS epidemic. I changed this one. It was purposeful and targeted genocide. I would say purposeful and targeted population tailoring control, gangs, and effective imitation of organized racist violence. So yeah, this is another concise portion of the text as well, where folks can easily get a decoded meaning of and a constructive meaning of these words as well, of how to use them correctly. I really wish I had this information back at Berkeley. I would have wrote some even more fire papers with this information here, because I use all of these terms. Gang violence. I use all of them. Gang violence. What I should have meant by saying that is victims victimizing other victims. VVV. But rapist, incorrect response to racist injustice, victims abusing other victims, thug, product of racial domination, homeless, victim of racial and economic injustice, product of racial domination, low proficiency test scores, purposeful, racial inferiorization, uneducatable, destruction of racial self-esteem. I think a lot of us have experienced that. I'm not smart enough. I can never learn this material. I'm just not meant to learn this insert subject here. I definitely experienced that in my existence. Super predators, increasing racial criminalization. So these are excellent decodings. And corrections. I see these as decodings as well, and correct and like proper ways to discuss these words. There's so many here. Pages 132 to 135 has a
Let me say something real quick.
Oh yeah.
Drugs. I'm gonna change it a little bit. Instead of drugs, poison warfare. Yeah, poison warfare on non-white people, Black people.
Yeah, that would work as well. So yeah, he's just giving us just an idea how to use how to create our own definitions and how to use them as well. Very constructive. If folks don't have any more notes to share, we can get into final remarks.
When it said, just one bit here where I didn't understand what the author meant here, where it said slow learners, and the definition he's got here, or the encouragement of asking the white supremacists, misunderstanding white supremacy. So he's got slow learners, misunderstanding white supremacy. I'm not sure about that. I put slow learners means non-white people the white supremacists have neglected educationally. That's what I would have put for that one. But VGQ, etc. I underlined basically more or less the same words that you guys, that the rest of the panel had.
Alrighty. Well, anyone like to start with final remarks, closing comments?
This is Kwaku. Constructive Business Meeting, as always, Race Code War by Khari Enaharo. Found this information to be very constructive. Decoding racially coded words is very, very important and a must need tool for any attempting counter racist to understand the system of racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works. I did enjoy how, in this session, we were, a lot of the people on the panel were coming up with their own definition, their own meanings. I think it's important that we are always thinking about racism, white supremacy, and how it's working, how it's evolving, and coming up with our own our own words and definitions and developing our own codes. You know, united, independent, united under the fight against racism, white supremacy, working towards it independent. So looking forward to the next business meeting.
I would say, yeah, an excellent business, constructive for me anyway. It's been quite constructive business meeting, and I would just like to say with non-white people, white people or the white supremacists actually spend loads of time, vast amounts of time, pretending that white people are more confused about racism and white supremacy than black people are. And nothing could be further from the truth. White people know a whole lot about racism and white supremacy because they're the ones who practice it. They're the ones who don't do anything about the system. It's either apathy or deliberate participation. And I would say, from what I've understood from interaction and studying what racism, white supremacy is, all the white people that I've ever encountered, and all the white people that I've ever heard about, they've all practiced racism, white supremacy. They all know more about racism, white supremacy and what it is and how it works than the black victims of it. If we knew more about it, then we'd be able to get ourselves out of it by now. So I think the evidence speaks for itself. So when people like Jane Elliott and Tim Wise, to name, but a few, Jolly Good Ginger and Dixie Whitey, etc., try to still push this myth about white ignorance. And this is why they did all this kind of stuff's just happening because of white ignorance. These white people, they just don't know what they're doing. They've got no idea what they're doing when they're practicing this stuff. And this whole stuff, just this whole racist white supremacist system has existed just because of white ignorance. I think it's ridiculous, and it's just an insult to logic. This is maintained by the actual knowing participation of people who are classified as white. And yeah, excellent business meeting. Can't wait to the next one.
My closing comments. Great constructive meeting. We're always in a fight of a war, so we need to know our enemies and learning what our enemies know on top of that. It's what will get us ahead. So always stay constructive.
Excellent business meeting, and I can't wait until the next one.
Thanks to the fellow hosts, Miss B, Mr. Damages, Miss Johnson, and Mr. Kwaku. My closing comment will be, in the war, we are in a war known as racism and white supremacy. And I'm just going to read a general quote from the code book is, as long as you are planning the next battle, you have not lost the war. So I encourage all non-white people to please go to producejustice.com, get your hands on the code book, get your hands on the ISIS papers, Yurugu, Race Code War, or if you can't find the time to read, check out our playlist. We have playlists of Yurugu, playlists of ISIS papers of the code book, a Race Code War, and a number of others material that can help to get you less confused about white supremacy, racism, what it is, and how it works. Thanks for liking, commenting, and subscribing and sharing this information. CRWS signing out.